She was a World Series of Poker champion. Now Annie Duke is betting that her skills from the poker table will help you when it comes to making money decisions. Her new book is called Thinking in Bets, Making Smarter Decisions When You Don't Have All the Facts. I love the idea behind your book, but why do you say that thinking of decisions as bets is really a more effective way to try and come to a decision?
Well, mainly because the decisions that we make are bets. I think that we tend to think of bets as happening in a casino, but what a bet really is a decision about an uncertain future that's informed by your beliefs.
As you say, there is a lot of uncertainty in poker, also in life. But you say that poker players really know how to use that uncertainty to their advantage. How does that translate for someone who maybe doesn't even know how to play poker?
So I think if we think about it, whenever we make a decision, there's a set of futures that might occur, but we don't know exactly what the future is that will happen. So we can use that to our advantage, because when the future doesn't work out a certain way that we wanted, we become less emotional about it, which I think is really good. I think the other thing is that we don't just assume that because something turned out poorly that a person made a really bad decision, or if something turned out well that they're brilliant. So it gives us a better analytical eye so that we can learn better from the outcomes of our lives when we recognize that the way that that turns out is uncertain in the first place.
How can you use strategies like this for somebody who is maybe trying to figure out what to do with their retirement money?
It's really good to think about how do we get to the end point, right? What's the end point that we want to look at, as opposed to just thinking about one possible future. When you're not thinking ahead to what are the different scenarios and how might things go wrong, for example, which is one thing that we don't like to think about when we think about uncertainty. What can happen is that you can start to think about just how do I get rich, just that one future, which causes you to have let it ride or pressing strategies.
Right.
And that causes you not to be diversified, right? So you have to think about, okay, what's the future where I get rich and what's the future where I'm safe and things go well? What's the future where I go broke? And when you get to the future where I go broke and the possibility of that, it reveals the let it ride strategy and reveals that diversification, that kind of free lunch, is really the way to go. So imagine yourself in the future and what your goal is trying to get to, and how is that competing with what your short-term desires are.
You know, as you point out, though, just because you're coming into something with a lot of facts and some experience, it doesn't necessarily mean things are going to go your way. Back in 2011, you co-founded the Epic Poker League. That league later filed for bankruptcy. What did you learn from that, and how would you take some strategies from what you learned there into what you do down the road?
Sure. I mean, I think I learned what most people learn from a startup, which is you know that you're going into something that's really uncertain. Obviously, the majority of startups fail,
right.
And you're obviously trying to start something that's going to be great, but you also understand that it's high risk.
Would you take the risk again, or did it make you risk averse?
I don't think it made me risk averse. I think that what you try to do is think about what's the information that I maybe overlooked that I can take into the future with me in order to increase the probability that if I start something like that again, that it would succeed. I think you learn from every single experience about, how do I improve my decision making going forward?
Sure.
And I think as long as you're learning and you're improving your decision making going forward, then it's always worthwhile.